What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Fatherhood Unscripted. Today is a very special episode. It is our 50th episode, and we have an amazing guest to celebrate with us today. We have Sean Whalen, the founder of Lions Not Sheep. Sean is here to talk about fatherhood, leadership, and what it takes to show up as a man for your family. Sean, thanks for being here with us in this big milestone episode of ours. You built a massive movement with Lions Not Sheep, inspiring people to live boldly, unapologetically. Can we just start by talking about how the mindset translates to fatherhood and how being a dad has shaped the way you lead both at home and in your life?
Yeah. Well, congrats on the 50th episode, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Mhm.
Yeah, mindset. I mean, the core foundation of Lions Not Sheep is mindset. It's around who you are, what you are. We have a foundational principle of core four, which is power, passion, purpose, and production, and maximizing all four of those areas every day. Power being the body, passion, relationships, purpose, your mindset, your spirituality, and then production, your money, your business. That really is at the core of everything that we are. And so for me as a dad, as a business owner, as an author, as an investor, my mindset is literally at the foundation of everything.
Mm.
Um, you can't achieve what you want to achieve financially without elevating your mindset. You can't have a shredded, weaponized body that doesn't have a very, very strong mindset behind it. You can't be a father to boys and girls. I've got a daughter and two sons, without having a very adaptable, elevated, expansive mindset because they're all different creatures. And
Hmm.
so I'm very much an advocate. I have stacks of books everywhere. I'm constantly studying, constantly elevating, constantly sharpening the sword with my own personal mindset, because that's truly what everything stems from.
Awesome. Yeah, I watched one of your videos recently where you were talking about if we could see that friction of sharpening and what would happen if we could bring it into our life and see it when it happens. That's just
Yeah.
awesome. What is one life lesson that you've learned as a dad that's completely changed how you approach life? And I know you talked about mindset, but is there just one like standout thing?
Shit. I mean, there's countless. The first thing that comes to my mind is something that I kind of coined many years ago. Those that know my story, I don't like to talk about it too much because it's the past. You can Google it, read my book, whatever.
Hmm.
One of the things that I discovered as I went through kind of my midlife crisis 15 years ago um, is that I don't remember a lot of the things that my dad told me, but I remember what he showed me.
Hmm.
And so one of the things is as my kids were really young, as I went through this experience, my youngest was 2 at the time. I realized that no matter what I tell them, they're going to believe what I show them. And it's a principle that I've stood behind and realized for many, many, many years. And it's something that's deeply rooted in my DNA as a father, is that I can tell them, hey, go dream big. But if I hate my life, what am I showing them? I can tell them, eat your vegetables and be healthy, but what am I showing them? I can tell
Right.
them, go make good money, but what am I showing them? And I realized that I was the example. And that might sound presumptuous to some, but I truly believe, as I've been blessed with these children, it's my duty and my role to be the example.
Hmm.
I don't look for TV, for TikTok, for church, for school teachers, for anybody to take precedence over my personal example. Like, I am the example. And I think that's something that a lot of dads don't really understand. Is we look at the world as these, there's all of these impressions happening. There's all of these voices happening. And nowadays kids have phones and TikTok and Snapchat and so much coming at them. I must be the sounding voice. I must be that one reassuring, educating,
Right.
disciplining voice that they hear above all else. And I
Hmm.
must be the best example to them. As a father of a daughter, my daughter just got married not too long ago. I'm about to be a grandpa. She's
Oh,
starting her
cool.
own family. I'm proud as shit of where she is in life because I know that I had a lot to do with it. I know that I showed her, what a gentleman looks like. I'll never forget, as long as I live. I'll never forget this. Her very first school dance that she went to in high school. We're all amped up, right? As a dad, it's like this first dance and the whole thing. And when she came home, she had this kind of dejected look on her face. And I said, well, honey, what's wrong? How was the dance? She's like, well, it was fine, but he didn't open up a single door for me, Dad.
Mm.
That was the very first thing that she said. And in my mind, my heart, I'm like, yes, see, I did it right. I
Yep.
felt
Yep.
bad for her because she didn't have the best experience, but I also
Mhm.
realized that I showed her since she was a little girl, me bringing flowers to school. I open up every door for her, for every, that's how I operate.
Hmm.
And I realized that she watched me do this for years and years and years and years. And it resonated so much with this little impressionable mind that the first time that she's with a different guy in this setting, she realizes that's not what I want. Like, that's not a gentleman. And I will say this to every father as long as I live. Your children are going to remember far more what you show them, how you live your life, who you are, than what you ever tell them.
Yeah. No, I actually had something. My kids are a little bit younger. Actually, I have a 4-year-old and my twins are 2. But so we had a boy and a girl twin. My daughter, she like, it's crazy. You bring them into something and you show them um, everything, like whatever you're doing, you bring them with you, and so they can see. And I was in the living room doing push-ups, and my daughter comes right next to me and starts trying to do push-ups with me. Say, "Daddy, you doing push-ups?" And it just reiterates what you were saying. Like,
Yeah.
just be that example for them. Show them that you're taking care of your body. Show them what you're eating. Eat the same things. Whatever you eat, let them eat, and just kind of like being that example. And so I just wanted to, yeah, it's cool. I saw a correlation as you were talking, and so
Yeah. My oldest son is 18, and it's a really interesting dynamic right now because he's an adult.
Hmm.
I mean, he's not my little boy anymore, and it's such a cool, the last 6 months have been some of the coolest experience that I've had as a father with him because we talk about different things now. He's like, he graduated high school. Now he's out in the world cutting his teeth and he's talking about money and his business and his future. We talk about, higher level conversations now about, these types of things. And it's so freaking rad because, I've got a great following on social media and know a lot of people, and a lot of the people that have followed me know my kids because I've shared my life with the world for the last 10 years. And the people that he works with um, speak so highly of him.
Hmm.
I mean, the last year in high school, I was like, all right, I don't want you to work for me because he'd worked for me and worked for the companies and stuff. I said, I want you to just go get a real job. So he went and got a job at Walmart, and he was stocking shelves at Walmart. And I got so many messages from people the year that he worked there. They were like, hey, I bumped into your son at Walmart, and he was super polite and he was very kind and courteous. And, they would take pictures with him and send them to me. And it was just rad knowing that, like, I had a massive impact on this child to have vision, to have tenacity, to have audacity, to have a really strong work ethic. And so
Hmm.
now at 18, he's graduated and now he's working in a professional environment, hiring a team, and he's in sales, and he's like going out and creating his own world, his own life. It's like it's one of the coolest freaking things ever for me as a dad.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing we can strive for is to see once our kids hit that age of leaving the house in adulthood, like, all right, yeah, we did a good job.
Yeah.
And the same thing, like DJ said, our kids are so young. My son's gonna be 9 in a couple months, and my daughter's 7. So you kind of see as he's approaching tweenhood or teenhood, I guess, he's starting to get that his own identity and kind of stuff, and moving into that. And just it scares you a little bit because sometimes you're like, where the heck do you come up with this stuff? And then other times you're like, all right, I see myself. You're like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm doing a good job, and that's the
Yeah.
the, the goal, right? Is just to make sure we're doing a good job as dads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep. And like you said too, I know you mentioned purpose being a big one.
Hmm.
If you're not living with purpose and you're telling them to dream big, and you're not, like, you can tell when somebody has purpose versus when somebody doesn't. Like, they're just going through the motions. They don't have any energy. They just don't have a plan for life. And
Yeah.
so, like, your kids can pick up on that as well. Like, they'll pick up on that energy. Well, dad just seems to hate life. So why, what is the purpose of life then?
Hmm.
Like, if
Right.
I'm just going to get older like him and just live where I sit on the couch, throw movies on, and just veg out. And I'm saying that there's a purpose for those things. Don't get me wrong. There's times where
Yeah.
you need to just decompress, but living with purpose and showing them that you have a passion and what your passions are and bringing them into those passions. And then when you're passionate and you have purpose, you start seeing what they're passionate for and you can
Hmm.
bring purpose into their life.
Yeah.
And so talk about like, how, have you seen your kids get older? How have you been able to like develop their passions and their purposes by using what you've learned?
I involved with my kids when I went through this midlife crisis, whatever you call it, years ago. I realized that I was work dad and work Sean, and then home dad and home Sean,
Mm-hmm.
and I hated it. I talk about in my book how I felt like I was juggling bowling balls, right? Like when I was at work, I needed to be at home, but I was at home, I needed to be at work. And I know that every man listening to this understands what I'm talking about. I realized I'm like, you know what? I'm me. Like, I don't want to have two different lives. I don't want to have the work life and the home life. I don't want to be this guy here and then have to turn it off and then come home. And I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to be all in. Like, I'm just going to be me. And I'm going to bring my kids into my world. And ever since they were little, I do a lot of public speaking, and I've spoken on some of the biggest stages of the world. And I bring my kids with me. I mean, they're there. I bring them up on stage intentionally. I did a keynote in Vegas a couple of years ago, probably 5 years ago, and I had a 45-minute keynote, and it was my son's birthday. And we were in Vegas doing racing the Mint 400. And so I got up on stage. I took a couple of minutes and said some things. And then I asked the whole crowd to welcome my son to the stage, who was, I think, he was probably 12, 13 at the time, maybe. So here's this little pipsqueak kid who comes up to the stage. We all sing him happy birthday. And then we spent the next 30 minutes doing Q&A with the audience. And I was like, I can stand up here and tell you, make money, give, blah, 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 blah. Like, ask my son questions. Because how many of you are parents? And most of the people there were parents. And so we had this phenomenal dialogue and experience. But here's my son at 12, 13 years old on stage in front of 500, 600 people. Like, that doesn't happen normally. Like, I realized that. And so to kind of tail end your question, how have I helped them? I've realized that like the number one trait that I wanted my children to have is independence.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I could put one word to one dynamic, one thing, one way of being, one modality that my kids got from me in life, it's independence. Because if they're independent, then they can solve their own problems. That's like one of the things I used to tell my kids the most. I have it written up here in my son gave me a little note that he framed. It says, solve the problem. Because I said that to my kids since they were little kids. They'd come over, Dad, he hit me. I'd say, solve the problem. Don't bring me your shit. I don't care. You go solve your problems.
Right.
And that's how I've always been with them. And so as they've gotten older, my job isn't to necessarily tell them to go here or tell them to go there. It's to kind of watch them navigate life, and they go over here and they get hurt a little bit. They go over here and they don't like it. They go over here and they're happy, and they go over here and they're sad. And it's to kind of be the buffer, if you will, to make sure they don't go too far off track. But I wanted all my kids to have independence. And as my daughter came home, she went and served a Mormon mission. She came home and she started dating this guy right away. And I wasn't for it. I wasn't having it. I was like, no, dude, I don't like this dynamic. He should be here, and he should be like asking me and talking to me, because I had my own story in my brain and what it was going to be like having this chivalrous young man come and, hey, I want to marry your daughter. And it didn't happen that way. And I'll tell you this, and this is a really like very personal, very intimate story that I'll tell the whole story later sometime. But my daughter at 21 years old basically gave me the middle finger. And she said, I'm going to go live my own life. And she kind of cut me off. And Dad's hearing that, like our first thought is ego. We're like, fuck that shit. This is my baby girl. Like, I'm going to go get. And I had one of the most profound experiences, and it brought us together so much deeper. My daughter and I have been very close ever since she was born, but it brought us together in a way that the only way that we could have reached this depth was through this experience, because I had to step back and say, my goal for my children was independence. This is a smart, beautiful, well-mannered woman choosing this life. She's dating a guy. She's in love. It's not my marriage. It's not my thing. I had to step back and allow her to be independent. And it's hard as fuck for a dad. But it ended up being one of the coolest experiences of my tenure as father, is literally watching my oldest cut the cord, cut me out, and say, I'm not going to ask Dad for permission. I'm not going to care what he says. I'm going to go live my own life. And, fast forward to today, and we have a beautiful dynamic, and, my son-in-law is an amazing guy, and they're expecting a baby, and it happened in such a cool way. Yeah. But like, I think over the years, me just allowing my kids to experience what they want to experience, is like, as a dad, we want to force them into this sport or that sport. I let my kids play whatever they wanted. And, now my youngest is a big time hockey player and a goalie, and he tried soccer and he tried basketball and he tried baseball, and he didn't really vibe. And then he found hockey, and now he's like a lunatic with hockey. He started his own YouTube channel, and I'm like, go, man. I will support you, endorse you, help you however I can. But I think as a dad, we definitely have this idea that our boys are going to be these star athletes and our daughters are going to be these princesses, and and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think that as fathers, we have to allow our kids to be able to go and experience life,
Yeah.
make mistakes, fall down, scrape their knees, solve their own problems, because the world is it's a crazy place, and I'm not always going to be around. And so it's a hard thing to do, especially if you're kind of a driver like me and a red personality. And I love control, and I stress about that sometimes. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I truly believe that that's the reason my kids are the way that they are. And they're such good kids, solid, and they're, cutting their own teeth in the world, is because they watched me do it, number one. But number two, I allowed them to just have that experience versus trying to be the dad who's forcing them down the path that I wanted for them.
Mm-hmm. I think I struggle with that a little bit sometimes, where DJ can contest. We were hanging out last weekend with our wife and kids, and my son will want to be like. We went to, was it Calico Ghost Town out in Barstow, California? I think it's California still, yeah. And my son's like climbing up the side of a mine, like an open mine, and I'm yelling, "Dude, get down!" And I'm like all over him, and he's like, "Dad, you don't let me do anything." So I struggle with that sometimes, where I have to find that
Yeah.
balance of, okay, he is getting older. I have to let him get hurt sometimes because he's going to learn. But at the same time,
Yeah.
like you said, it's the hardest thing for dads to like, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I think us, and this is a really interesting dynamic, man. Having kids, like it goes back to what I said initially. We are the example. Like, we are that, and you have to allow them to. I want my kids to be able to curate their own mind.
mm,
You know what I mean? I don't want them to live the way I live and do it the way I do it. I want them to find their own passions and their own vigor and their own desires. And that's a hard thing to do, because we are protectors, we are providers, we want what's best for them, but what's best for them is typically what we think is best for them.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't think that this rushed marriage and, whatever, I didn't think it was the best for her, but it's not my life. It's her life. Right. And so it's a struggle, but I have a lot of empathy for dads, especially today, with so much influence and things coming to them. And yeah, it's a wild experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing that my wife and I have implemented in our house is whenever our kids ask why, because growing up, I was always told because I said so. So I was never able to question anything. And so I didn't really have a mind of my own. So fast forward to when my wife and I got married, young, just out of the house. And she's like, well, like, what do you, like, you don't make any decisions. You don't, like, you always ask me. I grew up in an environment where I wasn't allowed to have that independence. And
Yeah.
so I realized real quickly, like, if we have kids, I never want them to have to struggle with this into adulthood where they can't make decisions. They have to ask for permission from everybody. They don't want, people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever our kids ask why, we go into the reason. And if we don't know the reason, perfect. So we probably shouldn't be telling them to do something if we don't even know the reason behind it. And just creating that independence is so important. And I am with you, like, as a dad, as a protector, you're seeing them, they're about to fall. You're like, oh, I can save them. And it's like that complex, that savior complex comes inside, and like, but I can do it. I can save them. I can, be there for them. I don't want them to get hurt.
Yeah.
And allowing them to go through those and allowing them to have that creativity of asking why really shapes, I'm personally, world changers. Like, they're going to be people who question the status quo and find solutions to not only questioning it, not only finding a problem, but finding the solution. And I know you kind of alluded to that with your kids, but yeah, it's cool. Cool dynamic, scary dynamic at times, but cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up, y'all? If you are not subscribed and following Fatherhood Unscripted on YouTube and Instagram, we are over there now. We're putting out some cool content, so make sure you're following us on all platforms to stay updated with anything new. We have a lot of stuff planned for the season, and we have a lot of amazing guests that are going to be coming out. So if you are enjoying this episode, if you're enjoying what Sean is talking about, please hit that like and subscribe. Yes, sir. I mean, we already kind of went back to that. So you're big on authenticity and not holding back. And you kind of talked about it a little bit, but having our kids embrace that, And kind of you talked to a little bit about with your 18-year-old, like he's going out in the world and like you're seeing all these new things. I did see your story, I think a couple days ago, when you guys were at dinner and you're talking about crypto and all this stuff. And it just that it's cool to see it change, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean it's there's no rule book on being a dad.
Yeah.
There's lots of books about being a dad, but there's no rule book on being a dad, right? Like what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. And I think this is where we get caught up a lot as men is, we look at other men and we compare and I'm here and they're here and this is the whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized years ago, like these are my kids. God gave me these children. It's my duty, my responsibility to raise them the best that I can, to impart as much wisdom, knowledge, independence that I know how. And I've been judged and critiqued by everybody all across. I mean, there's freaking Reddit threads that thrash me for being an abusive, terrible father, and I'm just the worst thing on planet Earth. But as the good book says, by their fruits ye shall know them. My kids are savages. My kids are literally like, my son's making more money at 18 than most 30-year-olds do that have college degrees. Like
Mm-hmm.
my daughter's happily married, having a family. I think I've done something right. But I think that, the idea that there's this rule book and it should be this way or should be this way or whatever else, it's like, it's hard because we get in our heads, but sitting down with my son, like I'm watching him just dive into life. Like I'm watching him explore. And like he hit me up the other day and he's like, Dad, I think I might want to go travel for a while because he was into the military for a bit. He wanted to get into the military and he's like still kind of thinking about it. And I'm like, son, I'm not going to push you anyway. Like I want you to make your decision. But he's like, what if I just went and lived like in another country for a while? I'm like, I want you to go do that. I was like, hell yeah, go. Go make 10 grand, go down to wherever the hell you want, go work in a shitty restaurant cleaning dishes in Italy and learn Italian and travel the countryside, then go to Spain and learn freaking different languages and experience the cultures. Like, you're fucking 18, bro. Like, you don't have a family, you don't have responsibility. Go experience life. Go figure out who you are and what you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like, it's terrifying, but it's so fucking liberating. You know what I mean? Because my dad wasn't around when I was his age, and I was a total hellion at 18 years old. And here's a kid who's literally showing me his crypto portfolio. He's like, Dad, I put in $300 and it's up like, I got $1,000 now. And it's like, I didn't do it for him. He did it. He did it on his own, and I'm so freaking proud of that. Cause again, it goes back to, they've watched me rise and fall. They've watched me fall flat on my face. They've watched me, laugh and cry. And when you talk about authenticity, like I just chose many years ago, I'm not going to lie to my kids. I'm not going to pretend that life is something different than it is. I'm going to give them everything. And so
Mm-hmm.
if they ask me how you're doing and I'm having a shitty day, I tell my kids, I'm having a shitty day. This is what happened. Here's where we are. I lost millions. I'm making millions, I've never hid any of that from my kids. Like I want my kids to know how much money I have. I want my kids to understand capitalism. I want them to understand economics. I want them to know how much, funny story. Like I let my son take my Lamborghini to prom. Now he took his driving test in the Lamborghini and I got so much criticism and so much shit from the internet for that. But here's why. And I'll give you kind of a little nuance, right? My son's 17 going to prom, taking a $250,000 sports car. Like most like to me, it's just a car. Like
Right.
anybody wants to drive it. I let my friends drive it. I let people drive it. I take people for rides. Cause to me, it's just a car. Yeah, it's great. And it's expensive and it's fun and it's cool, but it's a fucking car. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at that as an opportunity to teach him responsibility. Right. You're handing this kid the keys to a $250,000 car, looking him dead in the eye, saying, you know what the hell to do. I know, Dad. And most kids that don't have the responsibility, that haven't seen their dad gut it out and work hard for a car and work hard for a boat or work hard for life, they just get given shit and they don't care. They wrap it around a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Dad will buy him a new one. My son knows that, like, what it took for me to buy that Lamborghini. And I handed him the keys, and obviously he's the star of the show. He picks his date up in a Lamborghini, and it's just I've never had that experience. But I gave him that experience and that opportunity to learn responsibility, right? Could he afford it if he crashed it? Fuck no. But he brought it back full of gas, clean, and in as good a shape as he found it, right? And I realized in that moment, like the pressure that he was under and the intensity of this experience was a invaluable lesson of responsibility. Now, again, people were shitting on it, dude, spoil your kids and make them go do this. And I'm like, no, dude, like that's the reason we work hard, right? Like I don't want my kids to be where I was 18 years, like at
Mm-hmm.
18. I'm not trying, like you're got to be fucking dumb as a dad if you're like, oh, I want my kids to struggle. Fuck you. That's the reason I worked hard, is to give my kids a leg up, to give my kids an opportunity. I don't spoil them. I give them opportunities to show themselves, to prove themselves. And I think that I've got so many stories like that over the years where I've given my kids these experiences that I never had as a kid, and realizing that, this is the stuff that means something in life. He's going to remember when he's a dad, he took his driving test in a $250,000 Lamborghini. So when he's building his empire, he's going to carry that same legacy and that same responsibility and that same call to action to his kids. And, the way that the brain thinks and their mind thinks, like, I look at life that way. I look at it a little bit different than probably most other people do. But again, by their fruits you shall know them. I mean, my son's, he's a fucking dope kid. He's responsible. He's cutting his own teeth. So yeah, I think that when you talk about that vulnerability, being radically honest with your kids, showing them life, not telling them how much money do we have? Why do we have this job? Why do I do what I do? Why do I invest in what I invest in? What happens when I lose millions of dollars? Where do I go? What do I do? How is that for me emotionally and psychologically? Like, I don't hide any of that shit from my kids.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you said legacy. So I got the really cool opportunity last week to see John Maxwell speak. And he does something he
Great,
talked
dude.
about was leaving a lot of legs for your legacy. And that's exactly what you're doing, is by teaching that to your son. He's then going to teach that to his son. And that's those legs for your
Right.
legacy. It's just going to continue.
Right. Yeah, I don't look at legacy the same way that a lot of other people do. Like, I joke with my kids, when I die, I want to be an inconvenience to them. Like, I want my death to be an inconvenience. We're like, shit, we got to chop up dad's stuff. Like, I don't really care. I want my kids to build their own fortunes and their own empires. So God willing, I live to 100. When I die at 100, they're like, I don't care. Just give it to charity. Like, we got our own empires. Right. Like, I mean that, like, I want my kids to have my legacy is my children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what they do. It's where they go. It's them taking my name and my ideologies and my 20 plus, 30 plus years of being a father and cultivating it and crafting it into their own unique individuals. That's a legacy, right? So then the Whalen name lives on, and for however many generations, with ideas and principles and morals and structure that I didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Milet, he talks about being the one. You know what I mean? He wrote
Mm-hmm.
his book, The One, and he talks about, like, some of us didn't have anything. We didn't have parents around. We didn't have dads around. We didn't have money. I am the one to change that in my entire dynamic, my entire family tree and legacy. I'm the one.
Yeah.
I'm the one to teach my sons. I'm the one to be there for my sons as they get older. I'm the one to teach them about money, teach them about love, teach them about respect, teach them about honor. I'm the one.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I look at it from the perspective of, my legacy is them taking that and them growing that and them doing that. And then, we've literally altered our entire family history.
Yep.
Yeah, I know you mentioned like a lot of people not liking, like giving our kids some things, and you know, uh, the thing I feel like most people need to get over is their own ego. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's honestly what hinders a lot of people, and that's probably what was speaking to you, like on social media, is like we should want our kids to stand on our shoulders and go to the next level. That's
Yeah.
what it's meant from generation to generation. In order to get better, stand on our shoulders,
Yeah.
and so that they can rise to new heights. And that's the reason we set these foundations. The reason you wanted to build this legacy for your kids, so that they stand on the foundation that you've already learned. They take all of your knowledge, all of the skills that you've taught them, and they go and they build something even bigger, a bigger foundation for their kids. And then their kids stand on that foundation with all that knowledge and skills, and they go do the same thing.
Right.
And so at the end of the time, you're like, they don't even want my stuff because they have their
Yeah.
own legacy that they've built.
Yeah.
They're
No,
like,
it's
they look
true.
at it and they reminisce about it, but that's
Yeah.
so, maybe you can talk about how to like get away from the ego so that they can stand on your shoulders and go to the next level.
it's such an interesting question, and I don't want to say that it's difficult, but it is ego.
Hmm.
I mean, men are control freaks. We like having control. We like being able to dictate. We like being able to say this and do this and whatever else. But like, I remember being 18 years old. I remember how hard it was. I remember the struggle of not having my dad around. I remember smoking pot and, being a total shithead, just wanting to fight every day. And just, I was a partier and was just a troublemaker. And I remember how hard it was, and I've looked at it from the perspective of, I don't spoil my kids. I give my kids opportunity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think every single parent on planet Earth, if they do take the ego away and they realize like that you want your kids to succeed more than you. You want your kids to be better than you. And that's a hard thing to wrap your head around. Like I want my kids to like go light years past me. You know what I'm saying? And I think that if you don't have that idea, you don't have that reality, then you're really fucking looking at being a parent wrong.
Right.
I don't want my kids to struggle. Like there's a big difference between struggle and falling down the mine shaft and cutting up your knees and maybe breaking a bone or two. There's a big difference, right? Hey, you touch the stove, you know that it's hot, you're not going to touch it again. You fell down, you realized, hey, I'm not a great climber, There's a big difference between that and struggling. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so I just have chosen, again, to keep the kids on kind of a framework and say, go experience, go do these things. And I think it's the best way to do it. In my opinion, it's how I've done it. But I want my kids to surpass me. And if I have an opportunity to help them, I'm going to. One of my good friends, Dan Young, he's been wildly successful, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he and I were chatting the other day because his son came up with this really cool idea. And we were talking about, my son, his son's a little bit older than my son. We were talking about Will, who's graduating college, and all of these ideas that he had, and how we were sitting down and talking about starting maybe a porta potty business and a dumpster rental business and all of these other things that are great opportunities. And I'm having this chat with my buddy who's a dad, and it's like we had this same thought process. He's like, I've built an environment and a network where I can help my children. I can invest in my children. I can have other people invest in my children. And I said, I've got the same thing. Like my son hangs out with millionaires and billionaires. My son is by my side as we go to meetings and do things and build and dream and vision. And it's so dope because I want my kids to have a better opportunity than me. I want them to have a better environment than me. And it's on me to create that. And so that's why I feel like men are really doing themselves a disservice as being a father if you're not after personal excellence for yourself. I
Hmm.
don't make my money for my kids. I make my money for freedom. I make my money because it allows me to be a better father. I go after my dreams because I want to succeed. Like I push myself. I hang out with very successful individuals because they drive me and pull me forward, and by pulling me forward, they're pulling my whole family forward. And so I think, guys have got to get out of this ego thing. And the truth is your family might be the problem. Your mentality might be the problem. The people in your space might be the problem. If you have shitbags in your space, if you're a guy and you're hanging out with other men that are liars and cheaters and unfaithful to their wives, get them the fuck out of you. I don't care who they are.
Hmm.
I don't care how long
Yeah.
you've known them. There's not a snowball's chance in hell I would ever subject my children to any environment like that. I don't give a fuck if you're a business partner, if you're a client. I don't associate with people like that because of how I operate.
Yep.
And I feel like the more you encompass that yourselves as a man, forget being a father, as a man, you're going to pass that on to your children. But if your kids hear you talking shit about the old lady, or they hear you talking shit about this guy or that guy or whatever, they're going to be a bunch of drama gossip queens themselves.
Yep.
That's why we don't do it. That's why we don't operate that way in our house. We talk about success and growth and well-being and excellence. You know what I mean? And it's up to us. It's up to me and you and every guy listening to this to do this. It's not up to the church. It's not up to my wife. It's not up to my mom. It's not up to the grandparents. It's on me. 150% on me.
Well, let's talk about that. Like that goes to your lions, not sheep, and you just helping men get to that point in their lives. And like you said,
Yeah.
it's about having those people around. Like having you in their lives is such a strong foundation in people's lives to speak into them. Like right now,
Yeah.
you're getting to me. Uh, I feel like we don't get that in life. Like as men, we're allowed to cry. First off, because John Maxwell spoke, and I cried when he talked. Um, but it's just that you feel the realness when you talk, And talking to all hundreds and thousands of men, how is that? How do you feel like you've impacted the world with how you go about life?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't feel like I'm doing enough, to be honest with you. I don't feel like I've been really, really blessed over the last 10 years, to have hundreds of millions of people watching my stuff on social media, to go viral, to have millions of followers, and to have the experiences that I've had. Like I truly believe it's a gift from God. God like gave me this platform, gave me this opportunity. And it's hard some days, man, because I'm a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I suck at a lot of things. Like I fall down, I do dumb shit. I say dumb shit. There's things that I don't like about myself. I have regrets. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I could have done it this way, but I've chosen to just be real, and I think that's the reason my message has traveled the world. And I have been able to work with literally tens of thousands of people and have the following that I do and the tribe that I do and the community that I do, because whatever it is, you might not like me. You might not like the politics. You might not like what I say. You might not like that I smoke cigars or whatever. I care, but like, that I'm spitting my heart, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving you truth. Like, this is what I believe. And I might believe something different next week. I might find something different,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what really at the root of it is why people enjoy Lions Not Sheep in the message, is because it's not about me. It's about my story and my growth and all of everybody else's. You know what I'm saying? And I get asked frequently. I'll be on an elevator, standing line. Somebody like, "Lions Not Sheep. What does that mean?" And my response has always been the same for 12 years. Like, what do you think it means? And they're like, well, to be a lion, not a sheep. There you go. How does it land for you? How does that feel? Like, what does it look like? And I think that's the real antithesis of it. I think that's why a lot of people don't like it,
Mm-hmm.
because it calls you forward. You have to choose. You have to choose. Like, you're either going to be a lion or a sheep. That is it. There is no in between. You're either going to be a builder or you're going to be working for somebody else who's building. You're either going to get shredded or you're going to be a fat sack of shit. There is no in between. And it's a personal duty. It's a personal responsibility. And I feel like I've been given this gift where I have, the ability to share my heart and my mind, and I do so openly and freely. And sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I might not be the best in how I orate shit, but I'm navigating life like everybody else. I have bills. I don't, I have a house and a mortgage and dogs, and I had to take my dog in the other day because I thought she was dying, and I got kids, and I have gas, and I have responsibilities and employees and payroll like everybody else does. I've just chosen to fucking share my heart and my soul because I know there's so many people that don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of men that are scared of who they are. They're scared of what's inside. They're scared of like what they believe. They're scared to voice what they fucking feel. We always say it's okay for men to cry. Like, what does it even fucking mean? Like, why don't we just stop lying? If you're having a shitty day, say I'm having a shitty day.
Right.
If you're fucking broke, say I'm broke. If you're like, dude, I'm disgusted with myself, fucking acknowledge it. But what do? We lie and put on the brave face and beat our chest because it's the manly thing to do. And then all of a sudden, Bob next door, who's had it all great, blows his brains out. And you're like, wait, what the fuck? It's because he's a fucking liar. And a majority of men out here, majority of men are fucking liars. If I ask you, are you a liar? You say no.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say, do you tell people the truth? Well, it kind of depends. I don't want to be judged. I don't want the church to get upset. I don't want my mom to get upset. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Fuck you. Fuck that entire way of being. That means you're lying. Because if you're not bringing yourself and your heart and your soul and who you are in every moment to the world in its fullest, most naked, vulnerable reality, you're fucking lying.
Yep.
Period. And I don't agree with all of this bullshit about being socially, this and that and the other and politically correct. Fuck political correctness. I don't give a fuck about that shit. I care about the results. I care about the growth. And guess what happens when you're growing? It hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what happens when you get naked? You're fucking naked. It's vulnerable. It's scary. And I think that's the reason that so many people avoid it. I think that's the reason we have more men today killing themselves than ever before. That's why we have more men addicted to drugs and porn and cheating and lying than ever before. It's not because we don't have options. It's not because we don't know better. It's because we're fucking cowards who lie.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not willing to tell the truth. We're not willing to get raw. We're not willing to get vulnerable. And you're literally killing yourself. You're literally killing your soul. You're killing your body. And somehow you think that's noble. Somehow you think that's being a good dad. I disagree.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Being real, and just because a lot of times we'll think we're being real with ourselves because all just kept up here and all kept in. But when you start saying stuff out loud, it becomes reality. Like you
Yeah.
have to face reality. You said, well, if I'm broke, guess what? I'm saying I'm broke, and I say it out loud. It makes me face that reality.
Yep.
And a lot of times we don't want to face that. We want to cower back in because it's really we've gotten to a point in society, American society, where it's more comfortable to be the sheep than to be the outlier and to be somebody that's vocal about what's real and who you truly authentically are, because that's what individualism is all about.
Yep.
If you're going to blend in, then you're not living with purpose, you're not living a life worth living. You're going to ruffle feathers. No, but not everybody's going to like you. But the quicker you get to that realization, the better your life's going to be, and the better your life is going to be for your children, because then they can live their authentic life as well, because they see that as an example. And so
Totally.
some of the things I'm thinking, I'm like, what have I kept in? I'm like, holy
Right.
crap! I think I've been holding stuff back, and I haven't been my real self. And I'll see glimpses of it, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
I see. Wow, I guess I don't do this because of this person, and I don't want them to feel a certain way. But like you said, forget that.
Yeah.
Be who you
But that's
are.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Just so we're clear, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with this.
yeah.
It's the discovery of the reality. Like it's you going, fuck, I'm doing that. Okay. Now what?
Now what?
Like there's
Exactly.
nothing wrong with this. This
Yeah.
isn't good, bad. You're not a piece of shit because you're not telling the truth. You want to tell the truth. I know it. You know it. We all know it. But I can't make you do it. Not you,
Yeah.
but everybody. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty is like, I feel like my calling is to kind of throw some fire in people's faces and get them to wake up and get them to ask better questions. Cause it's like, I don't judge you. I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really don't care what you do with your life. I just want to be a tool used to help you elevate. I want to know that when I'm dead, I impacted the world in a way that I woke people up. I had to be woken up. I was woken up 12 years ago, 13 years ago to this reality. And Lions Not Sheep was born. It's my duty. It's my responsibility. It's my call to do the same thing. And so I don't judge where you are. I don't care if you're lying, cheating, unfaithful. What I care about is that you're honest about it and that you reconcile the reality and then build something new.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where guys get scared. They're scared to talk about their porn addiction or that they've lied or that they've cheated. And the reality is that's what's killing you. That's what's causing the suffering. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I kind of feel that in the last, we've been talking to some really cool people, a lot of strong men, and I feel like we've kind of opened this last year for me and DJ has been a growth, especially like, and this is, it seems so menial, but like this hat, I've been wanting to buy a hat like this forever, but I've always thought like, oh, people aren't going to like it. I look stupid in that. So I always wear just a backwards hat like DJ's wearing. And so I finally bought the stupid hat and it's been nothing but like, dude, you look so good in that freaking hat.
I love it. It looks great.
Yeah. And
Freaking out rad hat.
I love it. And it seems such like a small thing, but it's getting out of that comfortability and become uncomfortable. Like I've never been one to go to the gym either. And this last year, I've started going to the gym with a couple guys I know, and I feel great. And it's just making that change. Like you said, it's coming awakened and just making that change once you realize like, oh crap, I've been doing this for forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where else to go. You're just the information and the flood of just it's amazing to speak with you.
Thanks, man.
And we've been so blessed this year talking with people like you, and just thank you again. Like I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast. Like this is our 50th episode, and I feel like it's going to touch so many people with just having you on and just the words and just help, like you said, awaken people. And not to end it, or we would love to have you back on, of course, and keep the conversation and keep the relationship here. Just because we want, like you said, it's about who you know and about staying around the people that build you up, and we obviously want to be around you and build you up. So just thank you. And so we like to end our episodes with what is one nugget. We've talked about a lot, but what is one nugget that you would give a man, upcoming father, a father, that's been a father for 50 years, what is one piece of information that you would give a dad?
Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Give your kids you.
Hmm.
Give them the real you. Don't hide, don't lie. Give them you. Like, let them see you cry. Let them see you suffer. Let them see you struggle. Let them see you win. When you want to spike the ball and you had a big day and made a bunch of money, spike the fucking ball. Celebrate with them. When you're down in the shitter, let them see you down in the shitter. Give them the truth. It's the great divider, in my opinion. It's also the great unifier. It's the greatest experience to know that you're all in, that you're playing all in, that you are truly giving your children real. Tell them the truth. It will never, ever, ever come back to bite you in the ass. If anything, it will build and garner respect. It'll build trust. It'll build unification, and you will literally help program, lead, guide, and teach your children to do the same thing. And that's the great liberation of freedom. That's the great thing that we're all after. All of us men are after is freedom. We're after freedom, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, physically. And the only way to become free is through telling the truth.
I love that. Well, DJ, it's 50, man.
Congrats, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
well done.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you too, just for being your authentic self. Like you said, you came to that realization, and because you've stepped out, you probably will never in your lifetime ever know the impact you've had on, because it'll be, you'll impact one person, but it'll impact their entire line of generations.
Yeah.
And, thousands upon thousands. You may, get to the end of your life and your legacy will just keep going because you've built this in your kids. And so I just want to say thank you for being that. Thank you for being on this podcast and not shying away from your authentic self, being on a podcast with guys you really don't know, because it, one, impacts us, but two, it'll impact everybody that listens to our podcast. And so, yeah, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I love the conversation. I love that you guys are willing to tackle the conversation and have the conversation and get uncomfortable and, bring people in, because it's very, very, very needed right now. And that's, I'll say one thing before you jump off, but I've got some things coming with Lions Not Sheep here in the next 60 days that are going to be formulated and formatted around fathers and sons. So it's been something on my heart and my mind for quite a while. And having my kids at the age that they are, I feel like now's the right time. And we're going to be rolling out some things that will be exclusive for fathers and sons. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. And then also, they can find you, Sean Whalen, on Instagram. Where else can they find you?
I'm everywhere. Just my website, SeanWhalen.com, Lions Not Sheep, Instagram, Facebook. I'm all over the place.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. DJ, I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Everyone listening, thank you for listening. I hope you guys got a lot out of this, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Later.